to start with, the reason why, is simple. Because it's a straightforward, you know, simple, easy to get into first-person shooter. Like, there's no other first-person shooter that is as straightforward as Painkiller. You just walk into a room filled with enemies, you kill them, you move on, and you go into the next room filled with lots of enemies. It's that simple. You can't get any more simple than that. The gunplay is simple, the controls are simple, everything's simple. You just basically walk around with WASD, you use the mouse buttons to shoot the enemies, you can use the mouse wheel or the hotkeys to change weapons, and yeah, that's basically it. If you can master that, you can play Painkiller. Of course, spacebar is to jump, and you'll need to use that a lot. Well, I'm going to explain why later on, but that's basically the core mechanics of Painkiller. Those are the core mechanics, and it's straightforward. You're not going to get any more straightforward than that. So, if you haven't played a first-person shooter before, you won't have a hard time figuring it out. It's really that simple. I could think of so many other first-person shooters that are not as simple, but there are other first-person shooters that are simple, but this one stands out as being very simple because there's no, which comes to my next point as well. It's easy to find your way around Painkiller. There's no getting lost, there's no puzzles, there's no key cards, and to top it all off, there's even the compass at the top of the screen which shows you exactly where you have to go. That just tops it off for me. That just makes it perfect for me, because I hate puzzles in video games. Like, I cannot play a single video game which focuses around puzzles. It's part of the reason why I can't get into the Legend of Zelda series, and I tried the Legacy of Kain series, and even Darksiders. It just doesn't do anything for me. I can't stand around in a room wondering what to do to progress. I have to constantly progress, through action means, action-orientated gameplay. I can't use my brain to progress. That's just not how I play. I mean, granted, there are games like strategy games, but what I mean is by puzzles. I hate puzzles. I hate stood in a room wondering what to do next to get through this part of the puzzle and stuff. I hate that. There's nothing more I hate than just being stood there thinking, where do I go? What do I do? Games, for example, that did this a lot, that I can remember from the top of my head, like Tales of Symphonia. I'm just going to say that game, because that game had a lot of this, where, you go into an area and you have these block puzzles to do. Like, those are some of the worst, because they take so long to do. Like, for example, one of the areas is in a sewer, and they have this long block puzzle where you just walk around pushing blocks, and it takes forever. It's monotonous. That's the problem. It's monotonous. It takes ages to do, and it just kills the pacing, and it just feels like pointless filler. And that's the issue with puzzles for me. That's why I can't cope with them. That's why I can't put up with them, and that's why I try to avoid games which have them, because they bore me. Now, I don't mind puzzles if they are optional. Like, Painkiller has secrets in it, which, are optional, and you can go to find them if you like, or you can just move forward and just keep killing stuff. That's how I like it. That's how puzzles should be implemented. Reward players for, having a keen eye, or, looking into stuff. I mean, I won't really say it's a puzzle, it's more of a secret. Most of it is platforming anyways, and I don't know if you watched my Let's Play, but you probably haven't, but if you did, I did make a comment about the platforming in Painkiller, and I will add to this. The one good thing about the platforming in Painkiller is that it's part of the game, really. It enhances your skills with, bunny hopping, quick jumping, strafing, and it just makes you better at playing. It's kind of like practice, when you do these platforming secrets, you learn how to do all these platforming maneuvers, which can make you better at the game, and presumably if the multiplayer was still active, it would make you better at the multiplayer. But that's the thing. The multiplayer is dead now, so you can't play it. However, you can still use those skills in single player if you so want to, but that's the thing. It rewards you, but it also gets you better at the game. So I can accept it, but believe me, I don't really care much for platforming in video games. I'm not a big fan of it. I do play platformers sometimes, but like very rarely. I'm not big into platformers really, but I don't mind some of them, but some of them are just, like Super Meat Boy and all that lot, like these super hardcore platformers, I just can't play them to save my life. But yeah, that's the main reason. Like, and a lot of games, you know, for example, I mean, let's look at Zelda Twilight Princess for starters. That game, where I'm currently at, I mean, I've even got a strategy guide, and I don't know where to go. Like, apparently I have to go outside and find these dogs and that lot. I played it, tried to do that, I couldn't find them, and it was apparently at night time where you had to do them or something, I don't know. But yeah, I just got lost in that game. I did not know where the hell to go. And this happens in so many games, it's unbelievable that I end up having to look up a guide to find out where the hell I'm supposed to go. Or just basically just stand around and experiment with everything until I can find out which path I take. Painkiller doesn't have that problem. All you need to do in Painkiller is look at your compass, and it will tell you exactly where you need to go. You want to find the next checkpoint, the compass will point to it with a red marker which says, on the checkpoint, on the compass, which tells you exactly where the checkpoint is. Now, also another thing that bugs me is when they add needless keycards to first-person shooters. Like, this is the one thing that I find about games like Doom. Like, seriously, a lot of first-person shooters, are overrated, but Doom stands out. Like, I mean, I'm not even going to talk about modern first-person shooters. I mean, because a lot of them are overrated. Like Call of Duty and that lot, they are the most overrated first-person shooters of all time. COD and Battlefield. But let's look at Doom. Like, whenever the topic of old-school first-person shooters comes up, Doom is always the one to get the mention. It's either Doom or Quake or Serious Sam or Half-Life or, all that lot. Those are the games that always get mentioned when it comes to old-school first-person shooter. You never ever see anyone mention Painkiller, ever. I know, and I don't understand why. Why does no one mention Painkiller? It is literally a timeless classic. Like, you can't, like, it perfected the old-school style of first-person shooters, if you ask me. I mean, maybe other people didn't think so, but you'd think that people would still talk about it because it added so much. There's so much added to Painkiller that other first-person shooters don't have. And I want to talk about that. And I find that games like Doom, for example, are overrated. Sure, they pioneered the genre, and I appreciate them for that, but really, there's not really anything special about them. Other than that, like, it's just, Doom. It's basic first-person shooting at its finest, and it's not where it all began, but it's one of the games which set it all off and made it big. And yeah, I think Doom is a bit overrated. I think that, we need to look at other first-person shooters rather than just Doom all the time, and Quake. I mean, Painkiller is very much like Quake and Serious Sam combined, with a bit of Doom in it, but with its own style. Like, Painkiller cannot be compared to any other first-person shooter, really. I mean, I don't know, Blood? I don't know, I've never really looked into that game. But Painkiller is on its own, it's its own thing. There's not really anything else that you can really compare it to in the first-person shooter genre. Though, there are other games that I can compare it to in other genres. For starters, like, one game that I could easily compare it to, strangely enough, is Chaos Legion, which is a game made by Capcom. I did a playthrough of it on my YouTube channel. It was terrible. And I've put them all on unlisted now because I just really think that it's just cluttering my channel, and my channel's empty now. And it's going to stay unlisted. This video's probably going to be unlisted, and it's probably just going to be on my blog because, well, it stays in one place, and I like to have exclusives on my blog because, it's nice for people who do follow my blog, and it gives them a reason to follow my blog and all that lot. But anyways, let's get straight to the next point. And this is the big thing that I really love about Painkiller and what makes it stand out from all other first-person shooters. And that's the premise. But not just the premise. There's a lot of reasons why, but the premise is just amazing. I love the premise of the game. It's just you playing some average Joe who, and this is basically the story of Painkiller. The story of Painkiller, nobody really talks about it, but, no one cares about the story of Painkiller. You basically just play Painkiller to shoot things, but still, the premise of the game is amazing. You just play as this average Joe who basically got sent to purgatory and wants to meet his wife in heaven. And to do that, you have to kill Lucifer's generals, and Lucifer or Satan. I don't know the difference between the two, to be honest. Perhaps there is some biblical difference, but I'm not a religious guy, so I wouldn't have a clue as to what the difference is. But yeah, you have to kill the devil. Well, you don't, but you have to kill the devil's generals. Actually, I think that was kind of a spoiler, but this isn't a review, so I might make a review of Painkiller. I think I did one before, but it wasn't that good. I think this is a good alternative. I might actually put like an annotation saying skip to so and so if you want a brief review, because I don't really think Painkiller needs a review. It's one of those games that you either love it or you hate it. But anyways, back to the point. The premise is amazing. I just love that premise. Like, you're just some guy who got sent to purgatory and you have to kill these generals. But the world that's set around that, like the world that you're actually brought into, like purgatory, is amazing. And this is what I'll come to later on. But I just think that, I like dark gothic style games. I really do. And this all started off with games like Warcraft and Diablo, which Blizzard made. And I think that they made some really good dark gothic thematic styles with their games, like particularly Diablo. Like, if you played the original Diablo, then you would know that game is also amazing. Like, I actually go so far to say that Painkiller is literally Diablo if it was a first-person shooter and wasn't top-down. If it was like a first-person shooter, that is what it is. Like, but then again, I would compare the gameplay mostly to Chaos Legion. It is basically Chaos Legion and Diablo and Quake 3, well, not Quake 3, Quake 2 combined with a bit of Serious Sam in there. That's how it feels. Well, no, that's not the best way to put it. Like, it's more like Serious Sam, but it feels like Chaos Legion if it was a first-person shooter and had demons in it. That's what it feels like. And I like that. I like that form of progression, and there's just something about it that I just like, how it's just the simplicity of it. Like, Chaos Legion does the same. Like, you just have, like, lots of different stages that you unlock as you go along, like, and they're just named, like, something, like, simple, like, Forest, or, like, Painkiller has a level called Forest. That's, you know what I mean? Like, or so-and-so, like, they all have straightforward levels, and they're all memorable because of this. They're a single stage and you remember them. And both games are pretty dark as well. Like they have this really dark setting, this dark, desolate setting that Painkiller has. And I mentioned this in my Let's Play as well. Like, there's the one thing that I love about Painkiller the most is the feeling of solitude. The setting just makes you feel like you're alone in this dark world of purgatory, and like the thing that tops it all off for me is the fact that, and I'm going to probably skip to this one, the world design and the variety of the different style of levels that you will encounter in Painkiller. You'll find tons and tons of different areas that you wouldn't think of when playing Painkiller. Like, you start off with the basic dark gothic style levels. Like, you start off with your standard cemetery, your standard catacombs, cathedral, and then once you get past the first chapter, it just goes all crazy from there. Then you end up in a prison of all things, and like, it starts going like into an urban style, but even when you're in these urban environments, you still feel it in the back of your head. This is purgatory. The ambient music usually kind of has that tone that constantly reminds you that you are in purgatory. You are in basically a land filled with demons, and you have to survive. Everything around you is going to kill you, and if it's not going to kill you, no one's going to be there. No one's going to hear you scream. That's what Painkiller is. That's how it feels. That feeling of isolation and that constant reminder that the world around you is pretty much a dead world, with the exception of the demons that are around it. And once you kill them, it's pretty much dead. And that's what I love about the world design. And it really pulls you into it. Like, for example, certain levels that come to mind, for example, the next level after prison is Opera House. That level is incredible. Like, it really is, for its time, an incredible and very memorable level. Like, it just comes out of nowhere. Like, you wouldn't think a dark gothic style game, well, actually it kind of does make sense really, but you wouldn't think that, like, a bright opera house, and it is a pretty bright opera house, would feature demons and stuff, but it does. It just works in there. And the thing about Painkiller's story, like, with its setting and all the different levels, is it doesn't really make sense. Like there's no real progression going on. Like, you just move from place to place, and you don't feel like there's any sort of progression with the levels. Like, they're just randomly thrown in there. And to be honest, I kind of like that because of the randomness. Like, it's just like, it just detaches you from any needless plot and storyline, and it just reminds you that this is a game that's supposed to be explored through its aesthetics and visuals and through its gameplay, not through its story. This game is not a story-driven game by any means. It does have a story just to basically add a premise, but that's it. That's all it has. The rest of it is just visual appeal and basically just getting immersed into this linear but impressive world design. And that's what Painkiller does right, that no other first-person shooter I have ever played has ever done, even remotely adequately. Like, most first-person shooters are just bland. They don't do anything that really makes their world stand out. It's either the same old dreary, military first-person shooter, or it's like something like Doom, where it's all sci-fi and, lots and lots of the same sci-fi areas. And they have this consistency that just gets old and repetitive. Whereas Painkiller never gets old. It never gets repetitive. It's always different. Everywhere you go, like, just looks different. Like, there's one level, like, later on in the game, which revolves around the Tower of Babel. And it is amazing. It is, without a doubt, one of the greatest levels in the game. It's also one of the toughest, as well. It really is. Like, if you watched me, like, I did a playthrough of Painkiller. I don't think you will not have watched it, probably, because, like, I don't even know why I'm asking these questions, but, like, I did Babylon there, and it was tough. Like, it was really tough. I had a hard time. But, yes, Babel is such an amazing level, and I'll get back to that sooner or later with why, because there's more I'd like to talk about the world and that lot, because there's more to it. World design is more than just, like, visuals, but, like, I think I'll get straight to it and just say the ambient sound. Before I even mention the battle music, the ambient sound of this game, normally I wouldn't like sounds like this. Normally the ambient sounds like this in games wouldn't really, work for me. A lot of games try to make these really ambient sound effects instead of music, and I just don't really like them. But for some reason, it works in Painkiller. It works. And the reason why it works is because in Painkiller, all the visual elements, are consistent, but they're different. But the ambience reminds you that this is a dark gothic first-person shooter. This is a dark gothic setting, and it's that constant reminder that, you are basically in purgatory, and that death is everywhere, and no matter where you are, death is around every corner, and there's no one else but you and the demons, and that's it. And the ambient sound plays when you're not fighting, and in those moments you kind of have that isolated feeling, because there's nothing there except you and the enemies. There's no partner, like AI partners in Painkiller, who are there to cheer you on. There's not even anyone communicating with you through radio, which I fucking love. I hate it when video games do this. This is the one thing I hated about Red Faction, like, above everything else that I hated about it. I hated the com chatter. It is just needless. I hate com chatter in video games. It's pointless, especially when you never or barely ever meet the characters that you are chatting with, because if you don't meet them face to face, how can you get invested? And so many games do this, and it really annoys me, but Painkiller doesn't do this. Another reason why I love Painkiller, because it doesn't have com chatter. Actually, it kind of does in one level, but that's kind of as part of the level's theme, but it's not com chatter to you. It's com chatter ambience. Like, you can hear random com chatter, and it actually works really well because it gives you like that feeling in a way. It's actually kind of amusing when you see the level. I'm not going to spoil it, but there's a great level. I mean, I spoiled the story, but you don't really. That's just the premise. You know, no one cares about the story of Painkiller. No one cares. In any case, that is pretty much what I have to say on the visuals. They are, and the premise. It's the thing that really makes Painkiller stand out from other first-person shooters, and I really love it, and it's probably the biggest reason why it's my favourite first-person shooter of all time. However, that would be nothing without the fast-paced gameplay. This is what solidifies it as my favourite. The gameplay of Painkiller is awesome. I think that's the best way to describe it. A lot of people just ignore the first things, and that's why I wanted to get them sorted out first, like talk about the first parts of Painkiller, because